listening to The Watchers. We're starting a little differently this week because, Jodie, we're reviewing Beverly Hills 90210, and we're recording on Sunday, July 14th, and we just learned the really sad news a few hours ago that Shannon Doherty died yesterday.
Yeah.
But they just announced it this morning.
What a thing to wake up to.
I know.
It's so sad. Shannon Doherty, not just important to us because of 90210, but because of Mallrats, because of Heathers, because of, talk about an icon of my childhood.
I know.
She'd been fighting breast cancer for almost a decade, and I don't like the term fighting breast cancer. She'd been living with breast cancer, surviving it, whatever you want to call it, for about a decade. She was in remission for a while, and then it came back. And a few years ago, she announced that she had stage 4 metastatic breast cancer. But up until a couple of weeks ago, she was recording her podcast still. Mm-hmm. So it was a surprise, but also not a surprise.
Right.
But it's and it's so funny. We were texting this morning and you said, I'm really glad we announced this last week so we don't look like ambulance chasers, because we had no idea, really. Obviously. And it's funny, all of the posts that I've seen so far today about it are pictures of her and Luke Perry being Brenda and Dylan are together again.
Oh.
Which is heartbreaking, but also shows of all the things she did, the impact of her and Kelly and Dylan, that love triangle. We don't even see Dylan in the pilot. We'll talk about that. But the impact that this show had for a decade outlived everything else that she did after. Mm-hmm. And she was in a lot of stuff.
Yeah. I mean, I think, like you said, it would be silly to pretend anything else meant more to the culture and people our age than that. But then, like you said, Mallrats is so important to you and me and people that we're close with.
Yep.
And I know Charmed is a lot of people's favorite show. It was, it's one that I actually never watched, but I know I would have been obsessed with it. I just missed it somehow.
Yeah. I watched it, but not in the same, I was in my mid-20s when that was a thing. And so I was kind of not in that world as much.
Oh my goodness. Jodie, she's also obviously, but I was just thinking about how much she's shown up in that we've covered. She's also in Girls Just Want to Have Fun.
That's right. She's the little sister.
She's been all over our show.
She was it's so funny. I feel like she kind of got the shit end of the stick of being a young Hollywood type, because there were all these rumors after she left the show or when she was about to leave the show. She was only on the first 4 seasons, that she was difficult to work with and blah, blah, blah. And it's she was in her early 20s and thrust into this extreme fame. Mm-hmm. And so she was labeled a diva and all this stuff. And I really think that it was the impact that she had is so huge. It's really unfair that became the thing that people would say about her, is that she was difficult on set, because there's the Sex in the City of it all. Who are you? Are you a Samantha? Are you a whatever? Mm-hmm. Before that, it was Kelly and Brenda and Donna.
Right.
And and it was just, the show was everything. And I think I was embarrassed a little bit about this when we were talking about it last week, about how we had to start with this show because it was such a precursor to everything else. But I don't know, I'm talking a lot, but this show was a big deal.
I was going to say something else is that we were talking about this off mic. I don't know why I always feel the need to announce that, but I was only 4 or 5 when this show came out. So
I hate you so much.
My point is just that you have a little bit of a better frame of reference for this one in terms of what it felt like at the time. I was definitely old enough to remember it in the later seasons, for sure. And I have really distinct memories of watching a few specific episodes. But it mostly was just already part of the cultural fabric for me by the time I was old enough to think about that stuff. So
yeah. Meanwhile,
so I don't really have a personal feeling that way about the show in terms of what it says about me, whether I did or didn't like it.
Oh my God. I mean, okay. It's just to lay the groundwork here. This show came out on October 4th, 1990. 2 weeks after that, I turned 15. So I was the age of, I think when the show starts, we're supposed to think, so David, Silver, and Scott are freshmen when the show starts. I was a sophomore in high school when this show came out. So I was either the age supposedly of Brenda and Kelly and all of them, even though they were like in their mid to late 20s.
100 years old.
I did not look like a full adult when I was 15, I promise you. But I was the age they were supposed to be. I was going through the same things at the same times. And like, we'll talk about it, but this show started out feeling very much like an after school special every week.
Yeah.
And it was so willing to talk about what was actually happening with teenagers at the time. In the beginning, it got like really over the top towards the end, but it was just so fucking relevant. And like, I did not move to Beverly Hills, but I did move from a very blue collar Italian town for high school to a town where there were kids driving up in their parents' BMWs. It was not like this.
Right. But there was a definite class jump.
Serious culture shift in my life, going from like people driving around in beaters, if they had a car at all, like, you know, and like working part-time jobs while going to high school, to going to a new town where it was extremely privileged. And just the clothes were different. Like when in this episode, Brenda's like, I don't have anything to wear. These people dress like they're in a music video. Like, I moved to this other town and was like, I don't have anything to wear. These people dress like a Benetton ad, and I look like a Debbie Gibson video. Like,
right.
It was just this whole strange shift. So I cannot overstate how vital the show was to me in high school. Like when they went to college, I kind of was at the same time going to college, and I didn't watch it as closely once I was in college, but it still was a thing I followed along with, and I definitely watched the whole thing. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I'm Jodie.
I'm Andrea.
And we watched the pilot, the hour-and-a-half long part 1 and 2 pilot of 90210. Sorry, excuse me. Wait. Beverly Hills 90210.
Yeah, get it right or pay the price.
Yeah, although no one's ever called it that.
I will say, just going to put a tiny little pin in this for maybe a conversation for another day. The reason I have held back on making us watch the Battlestar Galactica pilot is it is a long 2-parter. So I guess that's off the table now.
I mean,
that argument is off the table now.
Wasn't the Lost pilot really long?
Yeah, it was a 2-parter as well.
Yeah, and we did that, so.
That's true.
So rest in peace, Shannon Doherty. Way too young, 53 years old.
I know. I always think of these people because... No, Jodie, you're as young as you feel. That's what I'll say. But I always think of these people
so
as
like
being
75.
so much. Yeah, me too. Exactly. That's why I feel like we're the same age. We're both 80. But I think of these people as being so much older than me because I was so little when the show started.
Yeah.
But that age gap gets narrower and narrower the older you get. And I'm like, man, 53 is so
young. And I mean... So Luke Perry, our other, I mean, he wasn't in this pilot, but he passed away in 2019, which is more recently than I remembered it being.
Yeah.
Of a sudden stroke.
Oh, boy.
And he was born in 1966. So he is about 9 years older than me. So he would have been like 57.
He was one of the older ones, not the oldest, obviously. We're going to have to talk about Andrea. We're going to have to. I know everybody has talked about Andrea.
Talked to death, but yeah.
It's so fucking funny.
I mean, they're
funny.
They're all old. Let's do a quick list of facts. So original air date of the pilot, October 4th, 1990. The original name for the show used during the shooting was Doing Time in Beverly Hills, which, yikes. And then the tentative title later changed to Class of Beverly Hills. That ended up being the name of the pilot. Directed by Tim Hunter. This was the only episode that he directed. Written by Darren Star of Sex and the City, Melrose Place, Emily in Paris, like classic soap opera guy. Produced by Aaron Spelling.
Did he sort of make the nighttime soap genre? I mean, I know he didn't because I think like Dallas, right?
So Aaron Spelling was involved in Dynasty, this was like Dynasty for teenagers.
Right.
But it definitely was the thing that brought it to teenagers. Like it had been done with adults before, Dallas, Dynasty, all of that. But this was the first like US based anyway, teen soap opera.
Right.
There was a lot of comparisons to Degrassi when it came out. That was sort of like the American version of Degrassi.
Right. And of course, was Degrassi before? Does it predate 90210?
It does, yeah.
Whoa.
Yep. This was sort of not based on it, obviously, but
inspired.
Yeah, inspired.
That's so fascinating because what I had read about this, especially season 1, the pilot in season 1, is that originally it had been planned to be more of like more involved with the families and a little bit more of like a family kind of drama.
There's an ill-fated emotional affair that the mom has like later in season 1.
I can't wait to talk about Dawson's Creek. But, and like you see, they sort of set stuff up with that principal who I think is younger than many of the students and the Spanish teacher. And so I thought it was like kind of a happy accident where it was like, we're going to focus on these teens and their family lives and blah, blah, blah. And then once people realized that it was the teens that everyone was actually interested in, it was teens who were watching, they narrowed the focus, which I think is true. But I thought that was like what kind of...
I think it was a little bit of both, to be honest. I think that...
I just didn't realize that Degrassi, that there was any show that cared about teens this way before 90210.
Yeah, from what I read, I think Darren Star wanted something like this originally, but it wasn't. People weren't really biting.
Right.
And then as it got more popular, they realized that it was getting more popular because of the teen romances and the, we can get into structure also of how this is similar and different to like the other shows we've talked about. But the thing that they did that really sealed the deal was, and I don't know if you read this, they did summer seasons. Before season 2 and season 3, they did shorter summer seasons. No one was producing new content in the summer.
Yeah.
And they had this like beach club, like summer season where like Brandon worked at a beach club and like everybody was in bikinis. And it was like...
Is that where Saved by the Bell got theirs idea
Probably.
from?
But it's the thing that hooked people because it was almost like real time. They filmed a summer season, put it out in the summer, and then everybody went back to school with them in September. So
really smart.
It exploded because of those summer episodes because nothing else was on.
Right. I mean, you remember TV in the summer.
Yeah. And like
what a nightmare.
And it was not set up for success in season 1. It was put up against Cheers. Like,
oh, wow.
So that summer thing is really what made it blow up. And then everybody by season 2 was like fully in, and it was chaos and just obsession.
Fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think before we get
Did you also read that, before we actually get into the plot and stuff, that it was a toss-up between this and a Heathers series?
I did see that. I wrote that down.
It's very interesting.
Man, the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
I actually just watched an interview with Winona Ryder where she went through some of her iconic characters. And she talked about Heathers and how it was just such an amazing experience to be on that set, and how she like is really still proud of that movie and what they did with it. Yeah. And of course, Shannon Doherty. Literally my first note in my rewatch is just, oh, Heather, because we watched it not that long ago, and we immediately see Brendan first, but then we see Brenda, and it's like, oh,
there she is.
Yeah, there she is. So, all right, we are going to do sort of a traditional recap of this pilot, I think, because we're going to use it as a framework to talk about all the different parts that we want to talk about. So like set and setting and all of the different ways it's similar to and talks to the other stuff that we've looked at.
It really feels like such a pivot point to me between a lot of the 80s stuff we watched and then a lot of the really more the like 90s shows we're going to watch. There's lots of stuff later than this that we've covered that shares some DNA, but it really feels like the flip between those two.
It's such a moment in time. It really is. And you can see like, okay, we're just going to start because like the first thing I was about to say was in the first scene. So we start at the Walsh house. Side note, this house was only used in the pilot. They switched to a different house. It's first day of school. They just moved there from Minneapolis. Brandon, Brenda, twins.
Don't do that to your kids.
I know. Fraternal twins. They're waking up, and Brendan is waking up to a very strange alarm clock, which was very Ferris Bueller to me.
The way it starts with him talking, I was like, did I forget that this is a Bueller thing and he talks to, or like a Zach Morris thing and he talks to the camera the whole time? But no.
Yeah, it's very Ferris Bueller. I know. It's really funny. Also, I noted I watch everything with captions. So the music that's playing from his alarm is quote unquote heavy metal. Of course, we don't know what the actual music was because so much of it had to be replaced for this to be on streaming.
I went on let's touch on the music real quick at the top here, because I went on a deep dive this morning. I think most, if not all of the music has been replaced. That's one of the sad things about streaming.
Yeah.
And it's funny because there's the party scene, I'm like, it didn't occur. It took me a little while to figure out what was going on with the music. And I was like, this band sounds like a pop punk band I would have loved in like 99. Like, who is this forward thinking band who understood what pop punk was going to sound like? And it's just that they did a weird job replacing music throughout.
It's such a disjointed feeling when you're watching it.
Well, and it's like, I understand that it can't always be the case that we can use the same music. I don't like it, but I understand it. But it just doesn't seem like they were very thoughtful about the replacements. And like, there's a scene, I figured it out with my deep detective work. Cause there's a scene, I was looking at the original soundtrack, what's listed for it. And it's like, there's a Jackson Browne song. And I was like, oh, I can't wait to hear the Jackson Browne song coming up. And then it's just some like weird instrumental. And I was like, that's not Jackson Browne. There's a really cool Instagram account that has lovingly, painstakingly restored really like long chunks of the show with the original music. It's BH 90210 restored. I'll link to it in the show notes. It's really cool.
That's awesome because it is really. It took me out of it immediately because I was like, wait, what is this music? Because I remember 90210 being a place where they used a lot of current pop music and musicians would show up in the show. And, so it was very jarring at first. So the actual song that's supposed to play there is by Transvision Vamp called I Want Your Love. Nice. It's significant how different the music is. So right after this, we meet Brenda. She's trying to get an outfit together, but, she doesn't have the right clothes or the right hair. I know.
Have you ever been to Minneapolis?
Yeah, it's not that backwards.
Fucking Little House on the Prairie.
She was on Little House on the Prairie, though.
She just brought her wardrobe over.
I will say, though, that type of dress that she's wearing in the beginning, that like drop waist dress, was
that's true.
Unfortunately, everywhere.
It is
in 1990.
Weird how trends are weird, I guess, is what I'll say. Because
we meet her mom and her dad. Her dad has to leave because of the traffic, which is very LA. We get a little backstory between the conversation. We get a little backstory in the conversation between the two twins. Apparently, Brendan was Mr. Popularity in Minneapolis, and Brenda can be anybody here. She could be homecoming queen.
That is kind of a feeling. You remember that?
It is. I moved to a new town my freshman year of high school. We see them driving to school in the Chevy Chevette.
I thought of you immediately. I was like, Jodie can't wait to talk about the car. Oh, boy.
I love it.
It's really good.
It reminded me of my friend's Chevy Nova that we used to call the big brown shark.
Even the fact that it's brown, they're really setting these kids up to not have an easy time in Beverly Hills.
I know. We get a montage of them driving through LA, which as someone who briefly lived there was like sort of nostalgic.
We get the world's longest montage.
Oh my God.
Never would this happen today.
But this is the influence of yeah, right? But this is the influence of MTV. This felt like an MTV bit, right? Yeah. They're driving in, there's valet parking, everyone's walking around with surfboards, crazy clothes, lots of international students, which I think was supposed to indicate that this was like a very different place. People are showing up in Mercedes and Corvettes, but the teachers are showing up in like shit cars, which of course is very appropriate. Somebody was carrying an early Apple laptop. I don't know if you saw that.
I missed that. I did see the person bringing their surfboard to class.
Yes, everyone has a surfboard. A lot of slow motion. It was the MTV of it all. It really was.
Yeah.
That was like, we need to act like this is a music video when everybody's arriving. We see Kelly Taylor pull up in her convertible BMW, and we meet our first Jersey reference.
Is
Jersey
there more than one?
person.
That was the big one for me.
There is another one somewhere that I wrote down. Okay. It's not as significant as Ian Ziering, born March 30th, 1964, and raised in West Orange, New Jersey.
That's right.
Yep.
26 years old. Is that right? Here.
Yeah.
And boy, does he look it. No offense, Ian Ziering, but you are a grown-ass man.
Really does. My favorite Ian Ziering fact is that his renaissance as an actor in the more recent years has been through the Sharknado franchise. That's just the best thing. Yeah. It makes me actually want to watch Sharknado.
I remember him being my least favorite character in the show.
Oh, yeah.
But man, is he like he's like charming. Like he was kind of my favorite part, like watching the pilot.
He's great in the pilot.
He's just like a rascal. He reminds me way more of he's got a little bit of Chris Knight, like a little bit of Val Kilmer.
But not as smart.
No, not as smart and not as charming, because literally nobody is as charming as Val Kilmer in Real Genius. But but he's got that vibe in a way that I was like, oh, I'm really charmed by Ian Ziering. I wasn't expecting that.
Yeah, rascal's the right word for him, I think. We find out that he and Kelly had dated and that they broke up. We find out that Kelly got a nose job. He jokes that they took a foot off of her nose. Haha. And then Kelly almost runs over Scott Scanlon, one of the two freshmen that we meet. It's such a such a great introduction to the general vibe of this show, which is very light, but also like very like, it feels like they're dealing, even in the pilot, with like pretty serious shit in a very surface light way, and just being like, well, this is what life is like. It feels very 90s to me in that. Yeah,
definitely. I had also forgotten that David is much younger, not much, but he's and is not like integrated with the friend group.
Yeah, that was interesting to me, because I watched this whole show, so to me, how they integrated themselves was something I had long forgotten, like how these two people and the other people involved in that general group became that group, right? And so as we go through the first episode, we see them meeting each other, becoming friends.
Yeah. And I think the thing everybody knows about Scott also is something that I had forgotten. Again, I only watched a handful of episodes, but just cultural osmosis wise, that Scott was there from the beginning. That was
I thought you were going to say how we lost him.
Yeah, well, I was going to say how we lost him, but I just, in my head, he was like a very special episode character who was introduced for it. I forgot that he was. Yeah, no, he was. Didn't know.
He was there from the beginning. It was why it was so shocking when it happened. Right. I'm not going to worry about spoiling a 40-year-old show, but like in season 2, Scott accidentally shoots himself with one of his parents' guns and dies, and it's this big,
real gun safety episode,
which was pretty different for the time. I mean, they really. Somewhere I have a list of all of the different like quote unquote social issues that they tried to address over their run, and it's like wild. I wrote down freshmen are so small. Because even though David Silver and the kid who played Scott were probably older than their characters, in comparison to everyone else, they look tiny.
Well, and I will also say, I'm joking about how old everyone is, but he was 17. So
okay,
a lot of them, like
David Silver or Scott.
Oh, Brian Austin Green was 17. Let's see how old Scott was. Do I have him in here? He was 15. So they were 15 and 17.
That's why they were small.
That's why they were small. And Jason Priestley was 21. And I think Shannon Doherty, we joke about everybody being so old, but the main cast, it wasn't that bad. Shannon Doherty was 19. Jason Priestley was, however old I just said, 21, which is still a pretty big gap, but it's
not as big as
it's no Andrea or
it's no Andrea.
Luke Perry, who I think he's playing a little older by the time we meet him, though, right? Like, he's not supposed to be 17, or is he?
I think he is
16. Oh, okay.
I think he is. I can't remember. I had forgotten he wasn't in the first episode. So this is what I mean about how we're like seeing how they met, because Brenda walks into the chemistry classroom and we get a very Heathers moment of the like unpopular girl walk in and like no one wants her to sit there. And so Kelly like waves this random stranger over.
Do you know what she's listed in the credits as?
Is it like fat girl or something?
Overweight girl. Yep.
Of course.
And so she's a school pariah.
It's so Heathers.
And it's such an easy shorthand. It still is today, obviously, but in the 90s, man, they were unapologetic about it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But they become lab partners, and that's how they get to be friends.
They're nicer to her than I was expecting for the pilot, her new friend group. I thought it was going to be more of like a Mean Girls situation. But
they integrate really seamlessly, both of them. Like, because the next scene is Brandon walking into Spanish class and sitting next to Steve Sanders, that Spanish teacher. It's so funny, like all of these things that fell away as the first season went on, like the teachers and the parents, like they become so much less important by like season 2, like you said. We get the newsroom. We meet Andrea. Well, we had already met her because she was the only person that understood Spanish teacher, but now she's in the newsroom.
Of course.
Yes. Yeah.
I could talk all day about this school newspaper. It's
a big deal.
Doesn't it feel like if you learned halfway through season 2 that Andrea was actually an undercover...
So 21 Jump Street?
Or like a Never Been Kissed situation where she actually was 29 and she worked for a more famous newspaper and then got really involved with the school newspaper. And that's the big reveal. Not that she's
actually trying to expose the toxic waste disposal problem at Beverly High or West Beverly.
They're the number 1 ranked newspaper. They're the number 1 ranked high school newspaper in the country, Jodie.
Yeah. Yeah. She's got an important job.
What are they?
Who makes those rankings? I know.
What are they talking about?
Who decides that?
That's not. Am I going to find out that that's a thing?
I might. Hey, it might be. I was smoking behind the cafeteria in high school, so I don't know.
Do they rank high school
I bet they
newspapers? Okay, this tells you something. Reddit, the Stranger Things subreddit. Are school newspapers really a thing? That's not the question.
No, we had a school newspaper.
Yeah, we totally did. But, but award-winning high school newspapers. This is, I need some other podcast. I need a new 6-part investigative series on the dark underbelly of high school newspapers. The like ranking thereof. I mean,
my high school newspaper, the Glen Echo, has been around since 1956. So
that's very cool.
She tests him. She does the, would you rather report on toxic waste or water polo?
He gives a good answer,
he used to cover sports.
It's not, and she's like, oh, guys. Yeah. And then he immediately is like, well, human nature.
She's such a dour, like, presence, especially in this episode. She doesn't really get much better. We get more information about her and she becomes more of a 3-dimensional character, but she is just always the like dour, older.
It is an odd casting choice to have somebody who is who feels like a dour, older, old soul also
looks. I know.
It is so odd because she really feels like a plant. Like, I'm like, you're a cop or something. Like, what are you doing here?
Yeah, she definitely feels like a 21 Jump Street.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, her big secret is not that she's an undercover reporter. It's
she lives out of district.
She's
from
poor.
Van Nuys.
She's a little poor. She's like not so poor, but she's like kind of poor. Like she has to take the bus.
Nuys. Yeah.
Her house seems. That's the other thing is I remember for some reason in my head, and maybe it says more about how I grew up. In my head, she was an apartment kid. And that would have been really shocking.
Yeah, you're right.
We had one apartment kid in my school that we knew about, and he like had a reputation because of it.
Yeah. Yeah, we had a set of twins that were apartment kids.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. But no, she just lives in the valley.
Horrifying. Disgusting.
Horrifying.
Ew.
Well, it's so funny. Like, this is not about me, but it is about me because, like, my mom, like, lied so we could go to the pool in the nice town. Like, she used her friend's address so we could go to, like, the nice town pool. So, like...
I had a year... I've talked about... I grew up in 2 different counties. I mean, a few different counties. But, like, the bulk of my school education was in 2 different counties. And for one of them, we had already moved... And my pop-up drove me from, this is a hike, Burlington County to Camden County every day for an entire school year. So I could stay in my county. And then they were like, we can't keep doing this. And I switched. Yeah. But so it's not, we just used my grandparents' address that whole year.
Yeah. It's not that uncommon, but it became like, you know, she's doing it because of the quality of the school system.
She's got to make it to the Ivies.
She's got to get to Yale. The lunch... Did you see? Okay, we're outside. We're at lunch. Brandon's sitting by himself like a loser.
The wall of microwaves?
Yes! Why are there microwaves outside on tables?
What do they do?
How did I not see this?
What do they do when it rains? Do they bring that stuff out every day? It must rain.
It doesn't rain. By the way, this is Torrance High School, which was also used in Buffy as an exterior. Uh-huh. Probably other shows too.
Definitely. That high school is...
It's very famous, yeah. But yes, there's microwaves outside.
And they're just on like folding tables. Are they running? They must be running extension cords.
I thought about this so much.
Truly, I could not believe it. Why?
All matching white microwaves.
Is it just because like... Because that's also a school where I think the lockers are outside and I think that's real. Mm-hmm. And I remember the first time I saw, it was probably... this high school, maybe it was 90210, I don't remember, but I do remember specifically seeing outside lockers for the first time and being shocked.
Yeah,
in a land of 4 distinct we used to have 4 distinct seasons.
Yeah,
like,
yeah, no, I know. It's so it really makes it feel like it's just this like magical place.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, there are microwaves outside. Brandon's eating alone. Kelly and Brenda have become instant friends and are eating lunch together.
And Kelly says something really funny where she's like, you don't want to be seen eating alone like that, nerd.
Yeah.
And it's her
brother. Yeah. We kind of meet Donna Martin. Kind of. She's at the table. Mm-hmm. She doesn't speak for the first, 2/3 of the episode, but and 2 other random people. After this, we see a very classic 80s jock nerd dynamic happening with the David and Scott walking down the hall, juggling books and food trays, and someone throws a football at Scott. He drops everything.
I hate jocks.
I wrote down, I too hate jocks.
Were the jocks in your high school like this?
Kind of, yeah. They were assholes. I don't know that they were like, well, they were kind of assholes.
I feel like all the boys in my school were annoying and a lot, but I don't remember the jocks being worse because they were jocks. Like,
no, we had a real jock culture in my high school.
That's so funny. Like, we definitely had jocks, but they just... I think I was from a town where just like everybody, we were all kind of assholes. So it didn't really work to have that kind of bullying happening. I don't know. Yeah,
no, we definitely had a group of jocks. They like wore their football jackets everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
They were like, but they were also super mean to people.
That's
like,
so funny.
It was very like Revenge of the Nerds.
We had like a really popular clique in my school. And like, but again, I think I don't know. They were.
Yeah, I think we've talked about this. Maybe not on the podcast, but like it seems like your high school was not quite as stereotypical, stratified bullying.
Yeah, just not. There were definitely cliques and groups. Like you could walk through our cafeteria the way they do in all of these, like in like Mean Girls or Clueless, and point to the different like. There's the goth kids. Mm-hmm. There's the but it wasn't as antagonistic. I don't think.
Yeah. It was at my school.
Mm-hmm.
Taking a page from the Jersey Shore, we got a plane flying by with the banner. To me, that only happens in the Jersey Shore.
Yeah. So funny. No freshman.
No freshman.
No freshman. Yeah. One freshman.
Oh, no. Yes. No fresh man.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Back
This
to
is
school
how rich
jam.
these people are.
Yeah. They rent planes to announce their parties. We see them in the car on the way home, and Brenda says she's going to go with some girl she met at school. Brandon says he'll meet her there. This is like, oh, Brenda's fitting in and Brandon's not. And that changes soon anyway. But I think that was something that they were kind of trying to set up that maybe just didn't work with the plot, because Brandon's immediately like just fine with everybody.
He has such a baby face in the beginning of this.
I know.
I was surprised. I know it's because I'm a million years old now, but like I was like, man, he really looks like a baby here.
Yeah. Yeah. A very trying to be sultry baby.
Baby. Also, why is he doing that accent? Did you notice it? It's like sort of New York.
I know.
Does that what do we think is going? Does he think that's what they sound like in Minneapolis?
I think it's literally
he's doing
like
a Midwestern.
I think he's trying to be like a tough kid from the city, moved to Beverly Hills. Where's Jason Priestley actually from? I think Canada,
Great
maybe.
Question. Oh, I do think he's Canadian.
Canadian American actor. Yeah.
So does he think he thinks
he's from Vancouver.
Yeah. Maybe that's just what they sound like in Vancouver. What do I know?
I don't think that's what they sound like in Vancouver.
It just reminded me of Justin Theroux, like Mr. DC, like the DC trying to do upstate New York and coming out somewhere in between. Like that's what it reminded me of.
Yep. Oh, he also, Jason Priestley posted on his Instagram today about Shannon Doherty. Cute picture of the two of them at high school graduation in 90210. So we're going to the party, and Kelly shows up in her convertible to pick up Brenda.
God.
And Mom is so embarrassing.
I mean, that is embarrassing.
Oh, my mom did that shit all the fucking time.
God.
All the time. She asks what time the curfew is. Kelly's like, what are you talking about? Yeah.
It's, what's funny? That is embarrassing. And there were the moms who, like, when you had sleepovers, had to come in to drop their kids off. Like, but I also don't ever, on the opposite side, like, I was close with a lot of, maybe when I was a little old, when I was like their age, I got really close with a lot of my friends' parents. So it wouldn't have been.
Yeah. What I think I thought was interesting was that, like, over and over again, like you were talking about with Kelly and Brenda, you're expecting more friction in their like friendship growing.
Yeah.
And you would expect them to like kind of make fun of her or something, but they're just like, oh, so embarrassing. And they drive away.
They all get it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
There's a lot of stuff set up like that in this episode where you think that just doesn't, payoff isn't even the word, but like that just doesn't play out, I guess.
They're still figuring it out. The party is at this gigantic mansion, of course, which
also, what did we find out her dad does? Does he manage rock bands? Is that him or is that somebody else in the pilot?
He manages rock bands. You're right.
I don't care how big your rock bands are, unless her dad is like James Hetfield or something like that. Like, what do you mean this is the house they live in? I don't buy it. I don't buy it for a second.
We have to look up like the net worth of music managers.
I guess music manager, like he doesn't own a record label. That maybe I would say.
But this is 1990, and we are coming out of the supremacy of hair metal bands and the like. I think
he should own a record label. I might buy it. I don't know that I could be wrong, but I was surprised. But yeah.
See, now you're making me want to look up who managed Motley Crue and how much did they make.
You look up Motley Crue, I'll look up Whitesnake. No.
Don McGee, who also managed Kiss, Bon Jovi.
Perfect. Okay.
He's the perfect example.
And I just wrote network instead of net worth because my brain is broken.
I remember Doc McGee because he managed Bon Jovi. He was also convicted for drug smuggling.
Pretty cool.
He managed, oh my God, Kiss, Skid Row, Guns N' Roses, Bon Jovi, Motley Crue. I bet this is who they were basing him on.
Totally.
The Scorpions.
All right. Well, his net worth today is $20 million. I don't think that's that house. I don't think that's that house.
Okay. But maybe at the time.
Maybe
at the time.
Wow, this is fascinating.
Yeah, I bet this is kind of who they were basing him on.
Okay, I'm going to walk this back because it is a management company. He's not just like a... Mm-hmm. Also, here's what I think now. I think you're right that this is who he's based on, and I'll bet they were going to introduce a story about this girl thinking she has everything and then her dad goes away for drug smuggling.
Except we never see her again.
I liked her.
Me too.
I thought the actor was good. I thought she was like...
We never see her again. Do you know where else we do see her, though? This was one of my other Jersey connections.
Tell me. Oh, wait, I do know. But go ahead.
She played Tony Soprano's girlfriend, Valentina La Paz. I also know her from Head of the Class, which is a show that I watched. She was one of the leads on that show. She's now a real estate agent in Beverly Hills.
Good for her.
Yeah. Selling like multi-million-dollar homes. I
really love the reversal of expectations with her and Brandon and
yeah, we'll get to it. It's entertaining. Mm-hmm. But in the meantime, Kelly is talking about her nose job and just happens to have the catalog or the brochure for the place on her.
So
She's
funny.
Showing it to them.
I also think it's funny to watch her, how she, maybe I'm getting too deep into this, but how she talks about the nose job throughout the episode. Like when she's talking to Steve, she just admits that but then when she's talking to Brenda, she says the thing that everybody says, and it's she had a deviated septum.
Yeah.
And so... But again, it's so funny that she has the pamphlet.
I love the fact that, like, I think at the time we were supposed to be like, oh my God, a teenager getting a nose job. Mm-hmm. But, like, she's fine about it. She's just like, yeah, I did it. Whatever.
Yeah, not a big deal.
But this party scene is like every party scene in an late 80s, early 90s. Like, there's a guy with a video camera.
That video camera.
There's a guy passing apps who's like also dancing and not actually letting anyone grab a piece of food. It just feels like a movie. Actually, no, it feels like a music video again. Mm-hmm. Yeah. David and Scott show up despite the fact that they are freshmen.
That's very funny that they decide to go anyway. And
Scott gets pushed in the pool.
Yeah, well.
I can't watch any of his scenes without being sad about the way he leaves. But we get introduced to the David and Steve, the beginning of the David and Steve relationship, which honestly is so sweet to me in the long run.
Too.
Because like he gets ingratiated into their friend group, even though he's like younger than them and kind of a nerd. Mm-hmm. And it starts here with him like babbling about his mom's acting career. Yeah. Samantha Sanders.
He loves Samantha Sanders.
He does.
She's a perfect mom.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. But now we meet Marianne wearing a gorgeous, very 1990s maroon velvet dress. Mm-hmm. I loved her look.
Her makeup, everything. Yeah, she's great.
All of it.
She's great.
It's perfect. It's perfect.
And are we supposed to think for a second that's not her house? Like, is it supposed to be a reveal?
I think so, but it is definitely not. Like, obviously, it's her house. Yeah. But she hates these parties. Mm-hmm. She just has to be there because it's her house. Yeah. They have this little flirtation. She writes her phone number on his arm in lipstick, which is just kind of gross.
Yeah. They dance.
Yeah.
They slow dance for about 10 seconds.
I wonder what song that was originally to.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
So Steve is too drunk to drive. This was a very 80s and 90s common cause to be brought up in these types of shows, drunk driving. Mm-hmm.
It's good that his friends are being so responsible, though, and nobody will let him drive.
Yeah, yeah. Although they give the keys to someone who has no license and should not be able to drive a stick shift either, because he is a child.
Really clever foreshadowing. When Steve and Kelly are talking in the parking lot, he says, like, I'm the one who taught you how to, he says how to, like, handle that clutch or something gross. And she's like, it's an automatic, actually, which I thought was weird because why wouldn't he remember that he didn't teach her that? He's like, figures. I guess maybe the car is new, whatever.
Yeah.
But it's like, remember, he knows how to drive stick and that his car is manual.
Yep.
Really clever stuff.
Yep. My college boyfriend taught me how to drive stick. It's such a cliche, but
I do not know
true.
how to, and I'm never going to learn.
Shout out to Andy.
Shout out to Andy.
He taught me on the worst car in the whole world. He taught me on like a Plymouth Laser with broken motor mounts. So it always
Jodie,
felt...
hold on. You must know. I have no idea what any of that means. You must,
I know.
You must know that by now.
I think it was was it a Plymouth? Or that might have been the car I had.
We need a little theme song for Jodie Takes a Car Detour.
Yeah, it might not have been. He'll correct me. It might have been that I had the Plymouth. Anyway, I had a lot of really shitty cars. But so David drives Steve home. They panic a little bit when they see a cop, and for some reason, David thinks putting a football helmet on his head is the answer.
See, where those cops would be able to tell that he is
too young to drive.
But he's
I think so. But how does that?
Years old, so
the putting a football helmet on is
I would say
really
it's more
strange.
distracting.
He drops off Steve, but doesn't put the car. He doesn't pull the emergency brake, I think, and it falls. It rolls backwards down the fancy driveway and smashes into another car. And David runs away.
Exactly what I would do in that situation.
Runs the fuck away. Absolutely. Yep. Back at school, we see Marianne eating sushi.
Because she's so fancy.
She's so fancy and so different.
And eating by herself.
Yep. Eating by herself, wearing headphones. Brandon sees her. He's got like a peanut butter and jelly.
So
Classic.
Midwestern.
Yeah. Yeah. But he jokes about going to Paris for the weekend. And she's like, okay, cool.
She's like, yeah, let's do it. I'm so rich. I
forgot how big of a part their date and their dating has in the first episode when it's like never brought up again.
It's so funny. Yeah, it really is kind of the whole thing. Well,
it's his whole arc, really. Yeah. He then goes and asks Andrea where he should take her to dinner, which is like, first of all, why do you think Andrea is the one who's going to have that advice? Like, go to Steve or somebody. This is where we find out that she's focusing on getting into an Ivy League college.
You can tell because she has glasses.
Right. Yeah. The blue iguana. This made me... this is where I was starting to really enjoy myself. Because I was like, this is just so early 90s, like, teen culture of, like, getting a fake ID and sneaking into a club.
It's so funny. The reason that she's able to get in is because her ID is, first of all, Kelly doctored it, but it's out of state.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't think we said this at the top, but I really had a good time watching this episode. Surprisingly, way more fun than I thought I was going to have.
It was so fun.
And you're right, it really does pick up here. Also, I want to know everything about that bouncer. That actor, I could have watched him forever. He was really compelling to me.
He was really compelling. But Kelly can't get in because she's trying to do the California fake ID, and they know. This was a big thing when I was a teenager, was getting a fake ID.
Yeah.
I never had one, but I didn't know anyone that could do it.
Yeah, exactly. Did you have teen clubs?
Yes, we did.
I don't think that's a thing anymore.
I think I brought this up once on New Jersey's World podcast or something, but the Round Hotel in Saddlebrook used to have a teen dance night in the restaurant at the top.
It's so weird. We had one called, you ready? The Milk Bar.
Nice.
Isn't that horrifying?
Yes. Yes. But yeah, going to clubs was a big deal. Teen or otherwise.
Again, I don't think it's a thing anymore.
No. But Brenda is left alone where she meets Jason, who was, I think, 30 or 31 at the time. He was playing like mid-20s, not a teenager, but still.
Oh, who now?
Do you want to say who this is?
Oh, Max Caulfield?
Also known as...
Rex Manning?
Yes. I was so excited for you to find that out.
I was so excited. Couple of things. He is only 5 years younger here. This is 1990. Empire Records is 1995. The gulf between...
I know.
I mean...
He looks like a different person.
The range on Max Caulfield to be able to play... He's like literally in 95 playing like washed up and 40. And here he's playing like hot young 25. And I think like you said, he's in between. He's British. He's also doing a totally different American accent. Than he does in Empire Records. I think that's, I don't know why, but I thought that was fascinating.
He's compelling in this. In the very flat 1980s, 90s, like handsome, slightly dangerous feeling.
It's funny because I kept waiting for him to go a little American Psycho on us.
Nope.
And he kind of doesn't.
No.
Like if she were age appropriate, I'd be like, go ahead, girl.
Yeah.
Date
totally.
this rich, kind of moody guy.
Yeah. He's a lawyer.
He's like being very respectful at first. Not even at first. Like,
no, he's acting like he would act on a date with someone his age. You know?
When she says that she wants to slow down, he does. And but I kept waiting for him to get like frustrated and push. And he literally never does.
Yeah. Brenda makes up a terrible lie about her entire sorority moving from Minneapolis to Los Angeles to be at UCLA. He's an idiot, obviously.
Yeah,
also.
What do we think? Yeah, come on.
Yeah, no.
We'll get there. The date is with the like group date is so funny to me.
I know. Well, so we're jumping back and forth a little bit in the show itself, but we'll just finish her date because, like, she goes to his apartment. They kiss in front of a wall of bubbles. His apartment is wild.
His apartment is such a, like, the idea, it feels to me like the idea of what a 16-year-old in 1990 thinks a cool, rich 25-year-old's apartment will look like.
Yeah. Yeah. He drives her to a sorority house that she doesn't live in, gives her his number.
It's on a business card.
Yeah. And then she calls Kelly at 6 a.m, which to me is not okay.
Not okay, but her mom calls at the middle of the night.
Yeah. Well, and this woman is not her mom later on. They change her mom, but her mom is obviously she says something like, I thought we had a deal.
She says like we were going to be adults about this or something like that. It's like, oof, oy.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a setup for like, oh, Kelly's mom is not great. But meanwhile, Brandon is on his own date on a motorcycle with Marianne.
They're dynamic. They even switch who's driving at one point.
Yeah, yeah. The music that is playing is terrible, but it's not obviously what was actually playing. Something called Clear to You by the Innocence Mission. I don't know. That's what's actually playing there. But yeah, they ride up the coast to, I think they were supposed to go to a restaurant in Malibu. And then it's so funny. They're like on the motorcycle and then suddenly they're in a hot tub. And I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah.
But I guess they went back to her house because her parents are never there. They're making out. She plucks a hair off of his chest.
The tone of the show is so funny because she says, "Oh, you've got a hair," and then he says, "Actually, two. I've been cultivating them."
It's a good line.
It's so silly for a show that seems to, in a lot of ways, take itself kind of seriously.
Yeah, yeah, but there's a little bit of like self-awareness.
Yeah, that's a very like that's like a line you could absolutely hear like John Cusack or Matthew Broderick saying in one of those movies. He's that kind of fill-in in this for me.
Absolutely. He is definitely playing that role.
Where it's like kind of cool, but not quite, and still a little like adolescent-y, like yeah.
But also like wise beyond his years.
Yeah. He's got all of that going on.
Yeah. Because she offers to have sex. She's like, let's take off all our clothes.
She says that, like I said, I really like this actor. I thought she was great. That line delivery is so funny. She says it as if she's possessed by a weird little demon that makes her say this line. It's so funny. Yeah.
Although the thing that I didn't like, I love the role reversal, but you know, he's like, haven't you ever heard of playing hard to get? Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, it's like, that part's gross.
We also, I mean, it's 1990, but But this is the thing that struck me the most about watching this. Again, I don't know what teenagers do now, nor do I want to.
Mm-hmm.
But from all of the takes that I have seen online, they're not having sex. They're not talking about sex. They're not watching TV shows about sex. There was so much sex in the first episode of this show.
Yeah.
And like, not outright sex, but like everybody's hooking up. Everybody's talking about it.
And everybody's so concerned with who isn't having sex. That was one of the, I don't want to be whatever about Brenda and Brandon's relationship, but they're both so concerned with whether or not the other one is having sex.
Yeah. It's so funny because this is like, I imagined when I was watching this, like one of my like teenage relatives watching this show and being like, why are they so like all talking about sex? Like, this is so unrealistic. It is not.
That's what I was going to say.
This is what high school was.
Yeah. And it feels like you wouldn't be surprised if it was one of those, like, there, you know, like, there are always like things going around that adults think are actual problems happening with teens that aren't. The impression that I get, and like you said, I don't think that at 38 years old we really need to be worrying about whether or not teens are having sex.
No, but I don't want to know. I'm putting this out there. Don't tell me.
Please don't tell me. But I think it is in two directions where it's like maybe they're not having sex as much, and even if they are, I think it's probably just not as big of a deal.
But it's also just not in that culture anymore. Like this type of show would not have this much reference to sex in it.
Well, hold on though. What about that show Euphoria everybody was obsessed with?
That's true. That's true.
But are they obsessed
I haven't watched
with it? And I mean, neither have I, but I think it's all about teen drama and sex. And I wonder though if it's more of like, because it feels so, I also don't know if teens are the ones actually watching Euphoria. It might be adults. It might be one of those weird shows. I have no clue.
From what I've gotten just through cultural osmosis about that show is that it's sort of moralistic about it, like about drug use and sex. And I don't know if that's true. I think it's like, but the big thing with 90210 that happened was about this topic was at the end of this season, Brenda and Dylan do have sex. Mm-hmm. And she is completely...
Do they have sex in the same episode? Do they both lose their virginity?
Oh, I'm sorry, not Brenda and Brandon. Brenda and Dylan have sex.
Oh, together. I thought you meant both of them lose their virginity at the end of the season.
No, they have sex after the prom or at the prom or whatever in a hotel room, which is very...
That's okay. It's special. Then you're allowed.
And they're in love. Mm-hmm. And the thing about it at the time was like, all the teenagers I knew were having sex. And this was like a part of our daily conversations. Mm-hmm. So it made total sense. But because it was a TV show and they had censors and they had advertisers, the fact that the two of them had sex at the prom and it was inconsequential, it was pleasant, she did not have regrets, she did not feel bad about it. People got mad about that.
So funny.
And so they had to write into season 2 a pregnancy scare.
Hilarious.
Because they had to punish her
for
enjoying having sex and not feeling bad about it. They got a bunch of angry phone calls to the network. And so in the second season, they created a pregnancy scare and they ended up breaking the two of them up.
That'll show them.
Yeah. Yeah. The producer later on talked about it and said, someday I will write a long article about the censorship that occurred after Brenda lost her virginity at the spring dance to her boyfriend, who had been AIDS tested, because she was happy and not full of remorse. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. So, of course, we can't have everything.
Right.
You know, we do have a storyline where a very realistic scenario, which is two high school students, you know, have sex after the prom. And they have to make it a moral tale.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
Yeah. So Steve is still trying to find out who was driving his car because he was too drunk to remember.
He's making like flyers.
Yeah, offering $50.
$50. Inflation.
At West Beverly High School, that can't be that much money.
Well, maybe in 1990.
I don't know. I think they're driving BMWs.
How much... $50, 1990 versus 20. It's $121.63. So
okay, at West Beverly High School, they don't care.
That's true.
We find out that Brenda has not been studying because she's gone so like social life and boy crazy.
This is another one of those funny tropes. It's Mean Girls too, where she starts flunking math because of a boy.
It also looks like Kelly is trying to cheat off Brenda, and Brenda's a little uncomfortable about it. Brandon gets flowers in Spanish class from Marianne.
Again.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
I wish Marianne had stuck around. Yeah. Honestly.
It's very cool that she sends him flowers.
Yeah. Yeah. She's kind of confident in a nice way.
He says later, if you can call them that or something like that, or I wouldn't call them that. And it's like,
what would you call them?
What the fuck would you call them? They're flowers, dude.
I know. I don't understand what he was thinking there. But Brandon is jogging during gym class. And we get the classic, like, he's not bragging, but he's also not denying about hooking up with Marianne. He's trying to have it both ways and, like, be the cool guy, but also not lie. And that just kind of is the rest of his arc for this episode is, like, dealing with the fallout of having created this rumor that he and Marianne slept together.
Which is a huge deal in this school. Everybody, again, we just talked about this, but the way everybody is tracking who's having sex is truly wild.
It's on the school radio station.
Man, how is this the first mention of the school radio station?
I know.
It's everything.
Every school in a 80s and 90s movie had a school radio station with like a quippy DJ that would like comment on the school's activities.
And you get that it's a trope on its own, right? The close-up of the mouth and the microphone of the DJ before you ever actually see their full face, if at all.
I feel like I saw that in like Empire Records when they were making announcements or something. That's same shot.
It's definitely in, oh my God, is it called Times Square?
Yeah.
It's definitely in Times Square, 100%. I feel like it's got to be, I know it's not a school radio station, but it's got to be in, what's your movie called?
Pump Up the Volume.
It's got to be in Pump Up the Volume.
My
for sure.
movie. Yes, it is my movie. But we immediately get the consequences because Marianne punches him in the stomach in the hallway, which, you know, I love the representation of violent teenage girls.
Yep.
I appreciate it. You know, we like to see ourselves represented on screen. I definitely punched one or two men in the stomach in high school.
And they had it coming, I'll bet, as much as Brandon does, which is a lot.
Oh, yeah. She said she can't trust him anymore. And we get this weird scene in the Spanish class where Andrea gets really upset at Brandon. This is like, again, she needs to get a life of her own.
She's also hasn't known him long enough to be this invested again in his sex life.
It's been what, like 3 days?
Something like that.
Yeah.
She really is the like moral backbone of this school.
Ugh, in the worst way.
Again, even when sex was a big deal in our generations, whatever, I don't remember anybody being this wound up about anybody.
Absolutely not.
And it's weird too, because they're not in this episode. I don't think I get the impression that they're setting up any kind of romance between the two of them here.
No. I don't think so, but
she's just the moral backbone of the school, I think, is what's going on here.
Yeah, she's such a weird character because she does offer herself to him later in the season, which is disgusting.
She's just, again, like you said, she's a strange character, but they needed to have some reason for her to be so upset with him that he has to chase after her.
Yeah. Yeah. But meanwhile, David and Scott are breaking into Steve's Corvette, which alerts him via pager, which really I absolutely loved. He catches them. And like, this is so anticlimactic because he's like, David claims responsibility. Steve chases him around the car, but then like David offers to pay for it. And Steve's like, I got insurance.
Yeah.
It's like, okay.
And then he's like, well, maybe... He says he knows a guy who works on Corvettes for cheap, which is like, why do you know this guy?
Well, actually, he said something earlier on about how he knows how to drive because his dad, I guess, like let him drive his car because his parents got divorced and it was like trying to like be the cool dad or whatever. So
I also love that he is the best dressed 90s kid in like his clothes are so good in this episode. And you know, it's that thing of like he left 8th grade, probably a big nerd, and now he's taking a big swing fashion wise.
He got a new wardrobe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. Brenda gets ready for her date. She's doing the thing that I think is so hard to watch because it's so accurate to being 16, where she like has met the guy once or twice and is like, I am in love with him. I like him so much it's scary. I'm like, okay,
it is,
chill out.
I don't think the show wants you to think, okay, chill out. I think the show wants you to think that that's real.
It's romantic. Yeah. Yeah, because the next scene they're at the dinner with another couple, which is like, ugh. I can't not watch it as a 40-something person now. And I'm just like, oh my God. It is like at the time, I think I thought it was romantic. It
is so hard to try to put yourself in her shoes here. Cause all I want to do is like, not rescue her isn't the word, because like,
no, but
she's not in danger, but it is,
but
like,
she could be,
but I mean, like, I'm almost like, I just want to save. Exactly. She just looks silly, and I feel bad for her. And like,
but his friends are so dumb too. She's asked to explain a black hole and does a very bad job, and they're all like, "Okay," without
a working understanding of fourth dimensional.
That was a good lead-in.
Algebra or something.
Yeah. But he wants her to spend the night with him next weekend. Brandon does his mea culpa interview with the school DJ. That is apparently broadcast not just at the school, but like in people's cars around Los Angeles.
Well, maybe it's the #1 student-run radio station in the country.
It probably is. The teacher in the chemistry class accuses Brenda of cheating.
I am obsessed with
the chemistry teacher and his classical music and his experiments.
Like, what? That's the stuff. There's some stuff in this episode that feels so out of tune with what the show is and way more in line with something like Heathers. I think the show is not quite...
It hasn't figured it out yet.
Its tone yet, yeah. Because, I mean, that is 100% something out of one of those, like Heathers or...
Absolutely.
I know it's a college movie, but Real Genius.
Yeah. It feels like satire. And it's thrown into a very sincere, like, show that doesn't make sense. But that's why they dropped all that stuff.
Yeah, and I think that's probably the right move. This actor he's one of those guys who's just in everything. Josh Mostel. I mean, just to give you a little, because I think he's great. I really like him. He's in Wall Street. He's in 90210. He's in City Slickers, Little Man Tate. I mean, I'm skipping stuff. He's in an episode of Cheers. He's in Searching for Bobby Fischer. He's in City Slickers 2. He's in The Basketball Diaries. Billy Madison. He's the principal. This is like, I'm reading you like every like third or fourth credit, because he's in a ton of stuff. He's in an episode of Wings. He's in Rounders, Big Daddy, Knockaround Guys, Law and Order. What else?
And he's probably
Mr.
almost
Robot.
Always like a teacher or a principal or like a IT guy.
Blacklist. Most recently, he was Saul in Bad Shabbos, which I've never seen, but yeah. I mean, he's been around forever, and he has worked consistently.
Right after this, Brandon apologizes to Marianne. He wants a second chance. She says she's staying home, and apparently she stays home forever because we never see her again. She goes home and never leaves.
I get it.
Someone should look into that. Make sure she's okay.
Yeah, but I was sad to see her go. I really liked her.
I liked her
cool.
vibe.
Yeah.
She looked like she should have been on Charmed, actually.
Yeah, totally.
You know? She would have fit in with the sisters.
Mm-hmm.
But the Marianne thing has more fallout with Andrea than it does with Marianne.
Yeah.
Like this is when he follows her home. She takes the bus home and he sees it and he like drives to Van Nuys.
Well, and we find out that the reason she's so good at Spanish is because she's
practicing on the bus.
And they all know each other.
Yeah. So he follows her home. She invites him in. I don't know. That their thing is weird. Brenda's back on a date with Jason at an expensive restaurant, and she decides to come clean, thinking that if he loves her, this is such 16-year-old brain.
Hold on, we missed something so important to
I'm
me.
sorry, I missed the payphone.
The payphone in the middle of a field, it looks like. First of all, calling to listen to the voicemail and not worrying about there being a missed call and looking like a lunatic, first of all.
1990.
They all wanted to hear his voice. And then
he wouldn't have known that there was a missed call.
Yeah.
Like, he would have just had a hang up on his answering machine.
Yep. If it beeped. They weren't sure if it beeped.
Right.
Or she was worried that it beeped. So that's fascinating. This is another example, though, of a thing where you think something is getting set up. She calls him at work.
Yeah.
And I'm like...
And nothing happens.
And I'm like, oh my God, don't call him at work. This is when you're going to find, I don't know what you're going to find out, but they're going to say something like, oh, is this Mrs. Jason?
Right, right. No, nothing.
Nothing like that.
Yeah. Don't call him at work. Don't call anyone at work.
Don't call anyone at work ever.
Don't call me at work.
Truly. But yeah, don't call Jason at work.
No, he's a lawyer. But he is pissed.
Yeah.
He is pissed.
Of course he is. Good reaction, Jason. Thank you.
I know. Correct. At the time, I totally would have been on her side and been like, why is he being so mean? I know, the show wants you to be.
It's so strange. I was surprised at that, the way they framed that. That, like, my friend said that if you really... And it's like, Jason does not want to go to jail. And
he's
also,
a full adult.
He's a full adult. And it's not just... He's not just like... If it weren't for the law, he would be having sex with a 16-year-old. He is clearly... Thank God that they paint him appropriately here. I was surprised at his vibe and how the show I was pleasantly surprised by how he responds, and I was less pleasantly surprised by what the show seems to want you to feel while watching this.
Yeah. Although he threatens to sue her parents, which is really funny.
So
like,
funny.
For what?
I mean, he's a lawyer, so he knows.
Yeah. But for what?
I wish he had. Well, how funny would that be if there were a long, drawn-out legal battle over the course of this season of suing her parents for the
who knows?
2 dates, I guess 3 dates they go on?
He wants his money back for the expensive meals.
So funny.
But he drops her off, and this is when she runs into her mother's arms. The parents in this show, other than the few times they like try to make a storyline happen, are pretty straightforwardly supportive of their children, which is nice. I mean, like, the Walsh parents are also presented, I think, in contrast as this like Midwestern nice parents versus these like, you know, debaucherous or narcissistic Beverly Hills parents.
Yeah, you learn that, like you said, when Kelly has that conversation with her mom, she says something about waking up. I forget what his name is, but she's clearly got some guy living there that what's her face isn't thrilled about, and
everyone's
and
parents
Steve's
seem to
mom
be kind of
perfect, and
a lot of the parents are presented in contrast to the perfect like Walsh parents, and they're not perfect, but they're definitely like the supportive good parents. But her mom is comforting her, and then they have a little Brandon and Brenda. Why is that so hard? Brandon and Brenda have an end of the night check-in where they talk about their dates, and she talks about missing Minneapolis, and she says, "Are we going to make it here?" And Brandon says something about how the people in Beverly Hills haven't cracked the meaning of life. They have a flirty vibe here that I don't like.
I didn't want to do it because I think that there's something, but
it's not
their chemistry.
It's uncomfortable.
What is going on there? Is it
just two young, attractive people that are playing siblings?
That's what I was trying to figure out. Is it just that we're just used to seeing young, attractive people on screen together or
I don't know. They definitely don't feel like siblings.
Does that dialogue play differently, or deliver differently, play differently? Is it the dialogue that's doing like?
Yeah,
I can't figure out exactly why it feels off, but it does.
It does feel off, though. Yeah, 100%. But
I also just can't imagine. I have an older sibling who's 10 years older than me, so obviously, but I can't imagine that if I had a twin that I would be nearly this concerned with whether or not they were having sex. But that's just me.
I can't imagine that either, but you never know.
So I think we've we talked about, obviously, the reason to include this is just chronologically, it's the first, and we're going to do a run on teen dramas. But there's way more than that, right? It's not. So.
Yeah. I was talking earlier about how in the beginning this feels a bit like a after school special every week. This show covered, among other things, teen sex, alcohol abuse, drug abuse, domestic violence and rape, gun violence, like teen pregnancy. Did I say that? Like Andrea fucking gets pregnant.
Which is like, really impressive for a woman her age, you know, with no IVF or anything. That's...
I can't...
She probably thought she was well past her prime, you know?
Yeah, exactly. But there's just like so many of those types of episodes. But I think, to me, it feels like it was done in a sincere attempt to talk about things that teenagers cared about.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like Kelly talks about a date rape. Scott dies of gun violence. There's like cheating. There's job stuff. There's stuff with like when Brandon goes to work at the Peach Pit. There's stuff about like certain employees getting paid less than others. There's Dylan going to rehab.
Mm-hmm.
There's God. Dylan gets married in season 6 and his wife immediately gets murdered. David gets a diagnosis.
I don't think I knew that.
Yeah. Because she was the daughter of a criminal named Anthony Marchette who tried to kill Dylan's father. It's a whole thing.
Okay, well, that's Jersey appropriation and I won't stand for it.
I know. David is diagnosed with quote unquote manic depression.
Ooh.
Donna gets drunk this was, to me, one of the biggest moments was when Donna gets drunk at the prom and they say she can't graduate.
Mm-hmm.
And there's the whole Donna Martin graduates, like protest. And there's so many fun clips of it online with them all being like, Donna Martin graduates. Like, because that's how it works. There's so much. There's parental death. It's like, they tried to deal with literally every possible thing and then some that could happen to a teenager.
Well, how many episodes a season did this show get?
Oh my God. It started with 22 and then it ended up with some seasons getting like 32.
How many total episodes of the first run? Because obviously there's the reboot. Yeah.
There are 293 episodes. Because they also did 2 summer seasons that in the listing of this get tacked on to seasons 2 and 3. But so there's 22 in the first season, then it goes to 28, 30, 32 for almost all of them. And then seasons 9 and 10 had 26 and 27.
That is
it runs for almost a full decade.
Just like for comparison's sake, I think of like One Tree Hill as a show that ran forever. It's 187 episodes. Dawson's Creek, 128 episodes. Like, that is
293. And it's so funny because like, and you forget that like Shannon Doherty left after season 4. Like,
and then there were still 150 episodes or something like that.
Well, like, we had Tiffany Thiessen come in.
Oh my God, that's right. It's so crazy to think about. Imagine how many episodes of The Bear do we have now?
Like 30?
Like less than 30? Imagine 10. Like, I know we're only 3 seasons in, but imagine 10 times that. What you could, or imagine that this being everything we've watched so far being 1 season of The Bear.
Yeah. I mean, it actually might be better. But we have plots with, like, I think I said domestic violence. Like, Donna has an abusive boyfriend. Dylan also leaves for a season or 2. There's just, like, so much turnover because it went on for so long. We have the oh, my God, where is she? Is she not listed in this?
Do they? This might be a question you can't answer.
Yeah.
Without some research, but maybe you know. So this show went on for almost a decade in real life.
Yeah.
How old are the characters supposed to be when the last season ends?
I believe they're out of college. I believe they do try to keep up with them.
Pretty close.
In terms of a normal, They definitely, like, fudged the math with the high school years a little bit, but they do graduate in, I think, season 4. And then, or maybe they graduate in season 3 or season 4. And then they go to college, and then, they go to California University. Hilary Swank shows up for a season.
Whoa. I didn't know that.
Actually more than a season, as Claire Arnold. There's the...
hey, what's she been up to?
Emily Valentine arc.
Who?
Emily Valentine is the most some kind of wonderful coded, like, pre-gay, like we talked about with the characters people hold on to. She was Emily Valentine. Just Google Emily Valentine.
Okay. Who is this?
It's what's the girl's name in Some Kind of Wonderful? The drummer Styx. It's Emily Valentine looks like Styx. She's Styx coded.
Who is this actor?
Emily Valentine. Yeah, she was played by
Christine Elise McCarthy.
Yes. She has like a punky haircut.
Yeah, she's cool as hell.
She's cool as hell. Yeah, I found an article about her being the sort of like unintentional queer-coded character. So Christine Elise McCarthy also dated Jason Priestley for 5 years. So Emily Valentine. There's lots of stuff that sort of comes later that was super significant and like iconic at the time. But I think that one of the reasons that I wanted to talk about this was what we're going to talk about now, I think, which is like just the impact like on later TV and sort of, you mentioned it in the beginning that this feels like its own moment in time, like post 80s John Hughes, pre Dawson's Creek, pre like 90s teen dramas. It's this like, pivot point.
Yeah, between, like you said, it's like the turn between John Hughes and Amy Heckerling, who's like our 10 Things I Hate About You, those kinds of movies. Yeah.
It also had a couple of spinoffs, one of which I had forgotten about. It has Melrose Place, which spun off in, I think, the 4th or 5th season.
Wait.
I didn't know that Melrose Place was
spin-off. I didn't watch it. I knew it was the same like team behind it, but I don't think I knew it was a spin-off. If I did, I've forgotten.
It came out of 90210. I think 4th or 5th season it spun off.
Fascinating. Because that is way more like evening soap opera.
But that was the idea, was like the adult version of this. And it came out in 92. So it didn't take that long, actually. Also created by Darren Star, of course.
Who carries over? Are there any actors who carry over? No.
Not really. So I think what happened was one of the Melrose Place actors shows up in 90210.
Okay.
And then we kind of pull out of it with that person.
Gotcha.
And see. Andrew Shue was in it. I totally forgot about that. I remember Heather Locklear being in it, but
Courtney Thorne-Smith.
Yeah, that was a crazy fucking show.
Yeah, again, not a show I watched, but I just, it's one of those shows that.
Group of young adults living in an apartment complex on Melrose Place in West Hollywood. Season 1 and season 2 were broadcast right after 90210. That was like the lead into it. But then there was another show that I had forgotten about that came out of Melrose Place. It was like a second degree spinoff.
Okay. Oh, I love stuff like
cousin
this.
Once removed. Called Models Inc.
That I don't know.
Also produced by Aaron Spelling. That was, let's see, it only lasted a single season. Revolves around a Los Angeles modeling agency run by the mother of the character played by Heather Locklear on Melrose Place.
Perfect.
So, yeah. But so it had its own spinoffs, but it also then influenced like pretty much everything that came after. Also ended right before September 11th. This feels like a pre-September 11th show.
Absolutely.
Like, even with all the drama and stuff, it felt like weirdly innocent.
So is this where we announced that we're pivoting and we are now a Melrose Place recap pod?
That show was bonkers.
Apparently got 7 seasons. I knew it was pretty long running, but I didn't realize it got...
It went on for a while.
Yeah.
I mean, it definitely... 90210 also got crazier and crazier. Like, there were all these weird storylines. Like, it was not good with homophobia. There was some, like, weird gay panic stuff in it.
Oh, boy.
There was, like... People got shot. There was a fire. Dylan's wife was murdered. Like, Dylan's dad blew up in a car, but then he didn't. Like, it really was a soap opera. Like, I think people forget how much it owes to the actual soap opera genre.
Right.
Like, Luke Perry had been acting in soap operas before this. There's a scene where Luke Perry, like, has to hold his dead wife's body in the rain. That
Perfect.
Is everything you think it would be.
Perfect.
Highly recommend rewatching that clip.
Man, that makes me just truly so happy.
Yeah.
Man, to be in the writer's room for a show like that, where you know you can kind of get away with anything.
You can throw anything out, yeah.
Man, is that good.
But I kind of think that going through it, we definitely kind of covered it. I was looking at an article in The Guardian, and this kind of speaks to what we're talking about. It says, there have been better teen shows. Freaks and Geeks and Veronica Mars would top my list, says this author. But few can claim to be as influential. 90210 set the template for every teen show that followed, from Dawson's Creek to The OC, One Tree Hill to Gossip Girl. It doesn't matter whether you rejected Spelling's fanciful idea of teen life, because without it, few of these shows would exist.
And it is so easy to draw that line. Like, you can, even in a show like Veronica Mars is the one I'm thinking about most, actually, which is, I think that premiered in 2003, I think, a full, what is that, almost 13 years and many shows removed. Like, there's so much in between. And, like, as I was watching this, I was drawing just direct lines to Veronica Mars.
Totally.
That it just wouldn't happen without this.
Yeah. We also haven't talked about the reboot that came out in like 2019. I did not watch it. I know nothing about it other than that some of the people from the original show played their adult versions of themselves.
It's also headed up by Rob Thomas, who's the Veronica Mars creator. So
okay. Yeah, Jenny Garth shows up in it. Tori Spelling shows up in it. I think Shannon Doherty popped in. They all kind of showed up, except, unfortunately, of course, Luke Perry. Well, I feel strangely good about this.
I was way less problematic than I was expecting.
Yeah, we haven't gotten to the gay shit, but...
Yeah, I guess they didn't really have time in the pilot to get really...
But I will say, like, it was better than I remembered. And this is someone who watched the entire thing and really, really loved it in high school. And, like, I expected for some reason for it to bring up all sorts of bad feelings about the time, but I just had a good time.
Yeah.
I really did. I almost wanted to keep watching it. I don't think I will, but, like, I kind of was like, this is, I mean, I think because I know all of the really important beats that are coming, I probably won't. Like, I remember it enough. But it was, like, not a bad way to spend some time. I love seeing Shannon Doherty on screen again, especially now.
Yeah.
I wish the music was still in it. That is a big problem for me with the rewatch, is like, it takes so much out of it to not have the actual time appropriate soundtrack. But
yeah, I agree.
But you had fun?
Yeah, I really had a great time. I put it off till kind of late last night because I thought it was going to be a bit of a slog. And it really wasn't.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed it. At some point, they go to Paris. There's so much to come. Maybe I will watch some.
I think that's what often is my expectation for a show like this, where it's like, well, you have to give credit where credit is due, because if it weren't for blah, 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 we wouldn't have these other things. And even though it's, all these other shows did a better version of, and I don't know that I feel that way. I think,
I think
it was.
No, I had a really good time. I'm so glad we did it. I was hesitant. But...
Yeah. I kind of thought, like, oh, maybe we should just skip it and say, we all know that this starts with 90210, but we want to jump in when things get interesting. But no, it was great. I hope we had some listeners who watched who kind of went in with the same expectation and got to have a nice time too.
Yeah. I hope so. I was, yeah, I said it a bunch already, but I enjoyed myself. I feel like maybe I've had enough therapy at this point that seeing things from my high school years won't trigger me anymore.
Right. We'll find out. Nice. We haven't gotten to mine yet. I'll let you know.
Well, actually, the next one is probably a bigger one for me.
Yeah. Do you want to tell folks what it is?
Oh my God. I've been wanting to get Andrea to watch this for so long. The fact that you haven't.
It honestly makes no sense that I haven't. I think I was
no fucking sense.
I think I was still just a little too young. The one we're going to watch after this is the one where I was old enough to really zero in and connect. But the fact that I didn't go back and watch this already.
Oh my God.
Especially because it's only a one season. We're not. Keep it a secret, apparently. I don't know why I always feel like we need to do that.
I know. It's like a reveal that nobody's waiting for.
But the show only got one season.
Heartbreakingly.
And people are obsessed with
season.
It. Is that why, do you think?
I think that's probably part of it, because it's about what could have been. You know, we loved it so much that it was cut off too soon, but also would it have been dragged out in later seasons and been less great? Maybe. But we are watching the pilot of My So-Called Life.
I'm pumped.
Me too.
It's like Moody 90210, right?
Yeah, alternative.
Live action Daria?
Closer to that.
Okay.
But with so much heart that it's kind of painful.
I didn't know that part.
Oh my God. I want to cry just thinking about watching it again. Claire Danes...
I do love her. Again, it makes no sense.
Is the most trembling, sensitive, volatile teenager.
Okay.
She's everything. I had the same haircut and color as Claire Danes did at this time.
So you really saw yourself here.
I had people tell me I looked like her when I was in high school, and I've never been so flattered. I definitely didn't, but it was nice to hear. But yeah, I can't wait. I'm also trying to emotionally prepare myself, because the last time I decided to watch it, it made me very emotional. The parents in it are a lot. Like, it's really, it's just everything.
I can't wait. Where did we find it? Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, so it came out in 1994. But similarly to 90210, it did lots of like issue episodes. Homophobia, alcoholism, homelessness, drug use, school violence, all sorts of stuff.
In one season.
Yes, exactly. So, yeah. The most understated description I can possibly find comes from Wikipedia. It says, the show depicts the teenage years as being difficult and confusing rather than a light, fun-filled time.
Okay.
Yes.
That sounds great.
Yes. So you can find it, I believe, on Hulu.
Yeah, it looks like Hulu for sure.
Yeah. I'm not going to say anything else. We get to meet Jordan Catalano.
Uh-oh. I know one thing about him.
What do you know?
That he can't read. Is that a spoiler? Should I cut that?
It's so funny.
That's all I know about him.
It's so funny. And Ricky is really important to me in my young life. But yeah, so it's definitely on Hulu. You can probably also find it elsewhere, but yeah, I'm sure most people, if they're listening to this show, have seen it.
Again, I know it's a weird one for me not to have seen.
That's why I say that. Yeah, exactly. Yep, it's also on Amazon Prime. You can buy the episode for 99 cents if you don't have Hulu. Oh boy.
I'm pumped.
Oh, did you know that, I don't think I even remembered this. I was trying to think of an outro and where we're going to see people next week, and it takes place in a fictional suburb near Pittsburgh.
Oh.
Which I don't think I remembered. To me, it's just a suburb.
Funny that I think one of the things that has kept me from this show is in my head it feels dour and like gray. And
I think
wonder,
that's just the color grading.
Yeah, so probably, but also I wonder how much that color grading has to do with the fact that they set it in basically
outside
Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think we've gotten too much that's not coastal, right? I think
or Chicago. Chicago centered. Yeah.
Yeah. I like Pittsburgh. I like Pittsburgh a lot.
Pittsburgh is cool.
Mm-hmm.
Another post-industrial city.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, we're rambling. I hope you enjoyed our trip back however many years ago, 30-something years ago. Good God. And yeah.
4 years ago.
Shut up. Where can they find us?
In a graveyard, because we're both ancient.
I know.
At WatchersPodNJ on Instagram.
Mm-hmm. WatchersPodNJ@gmail.com. You can find me on Instagram at Jodie_Mim, JODIE_MIM.
And I'm at AQAndreaQ.
We will see you next week in some little suburb outside Pittsburgh with lots of teenage angst and beautiful red hair.
Hell yeah.
See you next week.
Bye.